Although I did sort of say that he was probably a bit of a bully, there's no question about the fact that he is one of the most talented musicians I've ever met.
How you doing?
I'm good. We're back in Fred's mum's place.
Back in my mum's place.
And we've been really overwhelmed by the response for the Jarvis prints, which look fantastic, and we're in the process of sending out.
So thank you everyone who bought one. We've got a few more, so
yeah, amazing.
If you're still interested, we'll leave it up for like a week longer or something. So today I was hoping we could talk about Gorillaz. So obviously our Blur video did quite well, so I thought we could follow on with more work with Damon.
Well, the interesting thing about this shoot is I was always keen to get you involved. I always felt actually you had a good eye, and I would always try and get you along because also you're photogenic. And one shoot that I brought you along on was a photograph the head of Mike Aronson, I think his name was. He was the head of Save the Children, and I got you wearing this mask, and it was, the pictures are quite sinister and strange.
I hadn't seen that for years, that picture.
Yeah.
I actually quite like it. It's very Halloween-esque.
Absolutely.
Perfect timing.
But with Gorillaz, you were a huge fan of Gorillaz, and you know, me being a good dad, I just wanted to give you like impossible kind of experiences that other children wouldn't have. And so I got to photograph Gorillaz. You loved their single, what's it called, Clint Eastwood?
Well, that whole album, Demon Days, was amazing.
And so I got asked to photograph Damon and Jamie Hewlett, who does all the artwork for The Observer Music Monthly. And I went along to the video where they were filming Monkey, which was their sort of big opera. When was it?
It was 2008. It was also for the Olympics, the Beijing Olympics.
So. Absolutely. And it was a great opportunity. Jamie was filming in this big sound studio on up the A40 somewhere. I looked in my diary, I can't find the location, but I brought you along. And so what's your memory of the day?
Yeah, I remember being there. I was so young, so I don't remember much, but I do remember seeing the animation before it was live, so that was pretty cool. And it was a big classic kind of music studio,
a lot of equipment,
twiddly things, and I was a fiddler, so I was very interested in all of that.
It was interesting actually because of the age we all were. So me, Jamie Hewlett, and the people working, there weren't any children. And so unlike when we photographed Keir Starmer, who has his own children, where everyone was charmed that I brought my son along, I actually think people were a bit wrong-footed and they were thinking, what's he doing here? So, and there's one frame.
Surely that's quite embarrassing.
Yeah, maybe a little bit amateurish. There's one frame where I'm taking a picture in the mirror, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm reflected in the mirror and I'm out of focus, and you're there as well, looking, sort of paying attention and stuff. So I photographed all the kind of performers, these Chinese sort of performers who were in the show. My memory of it was that there was lots of green screen. So it was kind of mixed animation. Motion capture. And Jamie was really involved in directing the performers. And I got lots of photographs that were reportage. But the only thing was that I had to convert a lot of them to black and white because there was this overall, everything was lit with this red light. Which meant that the camera had a real trouble recording that. So I converted those pictures to black and white, a lot of them to black and white. And the pictures that were conventional color digital, I was probably shooting on a 1DS Mark II, Canon 1DS Mark II. And the conventional color digital pictures were the ones where they were in the various dressing rooms and they were being prepped and sort of given their motivation, and Jamie was sort of telling them what he wanted from them. Yeah. And also, I should point out, in relation to Damon, that although I did sort of say that he was probably a bit of a bully, there's no question about the fact that he is one of the most talented musicians I've ever met. Yeah. And I'm really clear that I really do believe that you have to divorce the work from the person. So it doesn't really matter that he's quite... I mean, it's
probably helped him along his career.
Absolutely, and I kind of got that perception of him on the second shoot, when I actually photographed Damon and Jamie together in a studio. The idea was it was a two-hander, so I photographed them in the studio as a portrait, and that was quite amazing because they created this original piece of artwork that was huge, probably about 12 foot by 12 foot square, of a big kind of monkey gorilla type of artwork. And they just messed around it. And my perception of Damon being a bully was more actually from that shoot than the previous shoots when he was in Blur. I mean, he was just quite difficult to work with previously, but I just noticed he was sort of wrestling Jamie quite a lot, and he was quite a bit bigger than Jamie, you know, and so, but you know, they were kind of like two lion cubs, you know, having fun.
They're
Really,
probably really close.
They are very close.
Everyone fights with their friends.
Yeah, it was kind of like very physical, and I'm like that with my friends. Like, even now, I'm an old guy. I still like a bit of a wrestle,
A bit of a bully.
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't say that, but basically, it was in this studios in Shepherd's Bush called Jasmine Studios, and it was a great opportunity because they were very insistent that the Gorillaz were the characters that Jamie had created. So even when they performed live, people were watching a screen, and then the musicians would be behind the screen. You know, they weren't kind of in the glare of. They weren't being observed. They weren't part of the performance. It was a cartoon.
Yeah, well, there's a whole storyline, story arc behind those characters. You go on one of their music videos, you can hear like people refer to the characters on the screen as almost people, or when he did this, or
yeah. I mean, they're quite well drawn. They're not kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah, and they develop over time. Like their later work, they kind of show different character
Noodle,
traits.
Murdoch,
yeah,
etc.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's an extraordinary. It was extraordinary to get an opportunity to photograph the two creators stripped bare in front of their artwork. You know, and I think they were kind of. I don't know if there are any other shoots like that with the two of them. I'm sure there are, but it was quite. It was a great opportunity that the Observer gave me. It doesn't actually pay as a photographer to know too much about it because you can get bogged down in all that. I mean, I just concentrated on having a good interaction with two interesting and talented people.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're sort of clowning around, and, you know, Jamie's sort of I got a ladder and put it behind this big artwork. And then I got Jamie sort of to stand up over the top of it, looking down. And then at one point, Damon was sort of like being annoying and sort of pushing it, you know, so he could have fallen down and stuff. But I just used available light for most of the pictures. And then because I didn't want to kind of hitch my cart to just one look, I made sure, because it was a studio and there was a sort of a plain backdrop, that I just got simple, strong graphic portraits, which I used the tunnel technique, you know, that we talked about with Zara.
Zara McDermott.
Yeah, except I didn't use a backlight. I just used a tunnel of polyboards, and I basically had one light on a softbox, just lighting
Nice.
my
Bouncing
subject
around the polytunnel.
Well, basically not bouncing around, so that the black was on the inside,
okay.
so that one light is very stark and contrasty.
Cool. Sounds great.
But yeah, same camera, all digital, and you know, a kind of good, comprehensive. The two shoots together made for a great sort of spread of pictures.
So the two shoots, the one I went to and this one.
This one.
And so it sounds like he was really easy to work with. They're having fun. It sounds like they're having a good time.
Yeah, they were kind of oblivious to me. I don't think Damon's sort of that interested in photography. I mean, my friend Al Murphy shared a studio with Jamie Hewlett. I wish I'd sort of known that back then, because I could have sort of said that I knew Al. Big shout out to Al. I'm a huge fan of his.
We'll put his Instagram
up.
Definitely check out his videos. They're hilarious.
Yeah, they're very funny. But they're kind of in their own little world, and so they did everything I wanted. And you know, I was sufficiently kind of I wasn't sort of too prescriptive and too kind of overbearing. I just sort of tried to capture the way that they interacted and messed around with each other.
Cool. And how much would you have been paid for a job like this, or this job in particular?
Well, the rate I've been paid really has remained roughly the same for the last probably almost 30 years. So it would be around the day rate for those sorts of shoots was about 250. It's probably about 280 85 now, you know, but I don't tend to do editorial just for the money. I mean, as long as I make something and it covers my expenses, the thing is, the magazine is enabling me to add to my body of work, to sort of kind of get an archive together, which you own the copyright of, which then you can kind of do things with, including this channel.
Yeah. So I think people might be surprised by that though.
Yeah.
It seems like a really low amount for photographing.
It
some
seems
of
a
his
very
biggest things.
paltry amount.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
So like, if you could like very simply break it down, what percentage of, say, the money you would have earned during your photography, or still to this day, what sort of percentage would be from shoots compared
well,
to?
the pie chart of my earnings, the idea is you do editorial and it's a showcase. So it enables people to see that you're really good. And when they see something really good, like my picture of Jamie and Damon, they can think, well, maybe I can get him to photograph these people for an advert for IBM or whatever.
Okay.
And so you might get £250 back then, or maybe £280 now for the editorial, but your name is on there and it's advertising your wares. And there's the possibility that Gorillaz might like working with me and therefore ask me to do. I mean, I photographed the Pet Shop Boys, and then subsequently they asked me to do some press for them, you know, and that doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes that can happen. You're getting work that you can then put in a portfolio, and if it's sufficiently, if it's kind of a folio that's impressive, it can be used to sort of sell you by an agent and get you advertising work.
So advertising's where the money is.
Well, that's where the money was. That was the sort of holy grail, maybe up until about, I'd say, well, probably up until about Facebook and Google came along. And now advertising revenue goes to Google and Facebook because it's much more targeted. The advertising business model is one of the advertising pays for the content in printed media. And what happens is that the advertising budget that agencies have, they can use it much more effectively if they take up a Facebook ad or a Google ad, because they know exactly who they're advertising to, and they can actually engage with the data. They can look at the data and they can kind of engineer the perfect kind of advertising.
See what works, see what doesn't.
It's been a huge paradigm shift, and that's why photography is not really viable in the old sense as a way of life, as a business model.
So what about the new sense?
There are other kind of ways of being a photographer.
So if you needed money, what would you do?
If I was starting out now, then I would probably do a YouTube channel. I would also be looking to engage with, instead of advertising agencies, I would engage directly with brands by making good content and tagging Land Rover or whatever. Say, for instance, my project on farmers. If I really wanted to, I could sort of promote. I could put that on my Instagram or whatever, those pictures, and then I could tag Land Rover, and in the hope that Land Rover might see that maybe this could be something that they could sponsor, or
like John Deere or something,
or John Deere or whatever. Yeah. So there are I think you have to be more sophisticated and more flexible in your strategically. It was very straightforward before. You created a portfolio, and then you took that portfolio to an art buyer in an advertising agency, and you hope that they would give you work. But I think that most advertising agencies are going to have to change. They are changing. They're going bust, and because they're kind of like the middleman. And a big part of the money that they make is actually securing billboards and the actual making of the advert. What they pay the photographer is tiny in proportion to the amount they we have to spend, and they make markups when they place ads in the Sunday Times or on billboards. And now no one really, people realize how crude that is as a way of selling a pair of jeans. You're much better off going after somebody who's already looked at a pair of jeans on Google. They've searched for jeans because you know that they're in the market for jeans. They're the right age, they're the right sex, and so on. So it's much more sophisticated now. So you have to kind of understand the modern world and the way it works, and use AI, use all those things as tools in order to kind of.
So do you think it ever will go back, or do you think this is just
no? I think this is a kind of new reality.
So what about influencers? Are obviously massive right now. You want them to sell a pair of jeans.
Yeah, as a photographer, you could identify people that are successfully using, who are charismatic and have star quality, and you could offer to help them promote themselves using your videography skills or your photography skills in order to create content for them. But I think the days of earning huge sums of money for kind of huge usages, like a Hollywood poster, are kind of over. They're kind of going to be over anyway, because I think a lot of imagery that is kind of commercial and not that original, but is sort of generic, but of a very high quality, probably will be able to be done with AI.
I don't know, but I think people in general, especially on YouTube, revolt from the use of AI. Like if they hear an AI voice, they instantly click off. And I think YouTube's actually banning channels using excessive amounts of AI. So
I can confirm I am not an AI. If you were going to create a kind of photographer, then you at least give it some hair.
Yeah, maybe. Cool. All right. So let's just go back to the Damon shoot. Firstly, actually, you mentioned after we recorded the original Blur video that potentially one of the reasons that you forgot to say on the day, but one of the reasons he might have been a bit cold with you was you kept getting his name wrong.
Oh yeah, that was the other shoot. Yeah, no, I was, sometimes it's funny how your mind works, and if you're really trying hard not to do something, then you end up doing it, don't you? I mean, if you're told that you have to kind of call someone Damon, and it's funny because actually, if anyone's interested and they live in the UK, at the moment you can watch The Omen, the original horror movie, which features a little child called Damien. It's a brilliant horror movie who basically is the devil or the son of the devil. And I was calling Damien, and I don't know why. It was just
That must have driven him mad.
It was
One day he was
there
difficult.
was also, I think, a character on Brookside called Damien as well.
Okay.
So it was a legitimate mistake, and it was very embarrassing. And then the more that I did it, the more he was sort of getting annoyed, and the more I was sort of trying not to do it, and that made me do it. And exactly the same thing happened with Ant and Dec. When I was photographing them, before they were famous, in the kind of evolution of their fame, they started out as characters on a kids program called, you were probably too young to remember it, called Biker Grove.
No, yeah, too early for me.
Yeah, so Biker Grove, this is how they came into the public realm. They would play these two characters called PJ and Duncan.
Oh yeah, I know about they were a band, weren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what they called themselves. They called themselves after their kind of fictional characters. And I basically, when I was shooting them, I realized I was trying to give them direction, and I realized I didn't know their names, and I was calling one of them PJ. And it's like, photographing, somebody that's a character in a soap or something and calling him their soap the fictional name. It's so insulting.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop, because I once I'd done it once, I was really trying hard to remember, and I didn't know which was Ant and which was Dec when I first met them as well.
So credit to Damon.
I was getting sloppy, basically.
But yeah, so credit to Damon. No wonder he was came across maybe a bit rude.
Yeah, and also the other thing we can point out is that Chris Floyd, who's a wonderful photographer and a friend of mine.
Yeah, check out his work as well.
Yeah, he's a very good photographer and a very good talker and very articulate, writes about his work as well. He messaged me after the Blur video came out, and he had a similarly scathing assessment of Damon. He's written about it.
Don't know if we want to. Oh, he's written about it. Okay.
Yeah, we can maybe post a link to it. But he pointed out that when he wrote what he wrote, he got lots of mainly female photographers who said to him that Damon was an absolute sweetie.
Okay, so depends on the day you're catching him on.
Yeah, maybe he's not a kind of guy's guy.
Yeah, which is
fair
I'm sure
enough.
quite common. Yeah, exactly. All right, Dad, I think that sounds pretty good. I think there's some interesting stuff there, which I think...
Yeah, it was nice to have you involved, and there are a few shoots that I think you came along to, but I forget them, and it's only when I look in the folder on the hard drive that I sort of see your little face, sort of in the corner of the frame, just sort of in view. But you were kind of really paying attention, and I think initially Jamie did actually. He was quite charmed when he first saw you, because you're a bit like one of those characters in Gorillaz. You were kind of like a little. We used to call you Freddy Fruitbat, so you were like this little. You had huge eyes, and, and you were kind of quite cheeky, weren't you?
Cool. Yeah, you're not wrong.
He said, in slightly patronising.
No, I didn't mean that patronising. All right, cool. I think that's everything though. And
cool.
There's some good stuff there around the business and the photography and the people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all ultimately, you don't get paid very much for editorial, but I mean, you get to go to photograph Gorillaz and bring your son along. You know
exactly. Like I was saying this recently. So I've quit my corporate job. I'm kind of getting paid a lot less, doing YouTube and some other bits and bobs. But we went to Colin Greenwood's book opening, and that's an opportunity I would have never got if I was still in the corporate industry.
Absolutely.
So it's worth it.
I mean, in my experience, when I meet people in the corporate sphere, so I used to work for Management Today, and I'd be photographing these business people, or Fortune magazine or Forbes, any of these. Quite often, they really yearn to do something creative, and they want to impress upon you that they're just doing this for the money, and it's like, you only have one life.
Yeah, completely. That's exactly how I felt. So for the viewers who don't know, I was a software developer. Yeah,
But check out the new website. He's done a great job on the website.
No, the website's not done either, but yeah, check it out.
That wasn't your area of expertise, was it?
No, I was
you were
back-end engineer. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching.